Hi, all. We should be back here now with part 5 of the Tandy Retro Show 2026. And this is where we're going to be covering the CoCo 4s. There's more than one, there's more than a half dozen. Seems to be about 10 or 12 of them. Anyway, let's see. I guess L. Curtis Boyle, we're going to kick it over to you.
Well, welcome to the show, everyone. We've got some people that actually have some of the machines here, including myself. Mine's a little bit finicky, so we'll see how the demo goes. I can at least show what it actually looked like in one of the case configurations that it had. But first, we're going to start. Joel Evie actually did some research on how the whole, CoCo 4 projects got started, because there was 3 that kind of came out at first, and then there's, later on different versions and enhancements to some of them that kept on going right into the mid-90s. But basically, the history is that the Tandy announced the cancellation of the CoCo 3. I think they announced it right before one of the Chicago CoCo Fests in '89 or something like that, or at least they kind of knew that was happening. I know Kevin Darling, when he talked about the OSINE Level 2 upgrade for the version 3 for the CoCo, the one that Brother Jeremy was showing all the time, he'd mentioned that, they were just about done their version 3, ready for, trying to make an arrangement with Tandy to actually sell it as an upgrade, and then they got told, no, CoCo 3 is being canceled. So this happened in 1989-ish, I guess, and I will share an ad that kind of talks a little bit about the history. It's the very first ad, even hinting at the MM1. I don't think it even had a name at that point, but Joel at the same time can actually go through the history, because he's actually researched it a bit more detail than I did.
Well, I did make a timeline. It kind of more or less centers around the MM1, but I mentioned a few other things as well. Yeah, from what I could see, I was looking through some of the later kind of post Rainbow OS9 magazines. And in issue 1 of the OSKer, or Oscar, or however you want to say it, there was an article that that said that in September of '89, Paul Ward, Kevin Pease, and Kevin Darling were discussing the possibility of a CoCo 4. Then by January of 1990, according to this article, they had drawings. I'll just read the quote here. "We had drawings worked up by the end of January, with the specs nailed down by surveys on what people wanted and our own design goals." And then another quote says 4 prototypes were done by April. It'd be April of 1990. In time for the Chicago Rainbow Fest. And then in July of that year, of 1990, the MM1 and the TC9 were on the cover of OSKer magazine, and issue 1. And the TC70 was also mentioned inside the magazine, though it didn't show up on the cover. August, this would be Oscar issue 2, said that the MM1 and the TC70 are both due to be available in September of 1990. And my little note here is, did this actually happen? Were they both actually shipping or available in September,
No.
or in September of 1990? Because yeah, I was.
No, there was multiple issues. I mean, Frank was late with his by a fair margin. Like Bill and I went to, I think, 2 fests in a row before we finally got it, our TC9s, because we were trying to get it on that early on. The MM1, they were trying to make it FCC approved, and that was causing a lot of issues, right, trying to get FCC approval, so that kept getting delayed. They could sell it in kit form only type thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, everything was basically delayed because everybody's expecting it to work a lot easier. Anyway, the first ad I showed was the very first hint that this was actually happening, and this was for the M1 when it was still under Kenneth Blay Enterprises. That was from the March 1990 issue of Rainbow, and then a few months later, this one here, The Revolution Starts Now, where they're actually giving some of the specs rather than just giving you a broad hint here, where it's mentioning MS-DOS-based applications multitasking alongside MIDI programs. I don't, did it? I mean,
yeah,
actually run DOS programs pretty well.
Oh, DOS app? No, yeah, I'm not aware of any of.
Yeah, I'm not aware of that either. But it mentions like 256 colors, sound that suppresses compact disc quality, performance that suppresses the Amiga, the ST, and the Mac. I think that actually is somewhat true at the time.
Yeah. So people have commented a lot that the 68070 isn't as clock efficient as the Motorola 68000, right?
At 15, it ran at 15
15
megahertz, but it was the equivalent of about what, a 12 or 10 or something.
I would say, yeah. I ran some did some experiments with Drystone benchmark, and I found some historic results from, I don't know, it was Byte magazine or something, and the using Ultra C and a later version of GCC, maybe 2.7.2. I think that was kind of the last version that we got ported to OS 9 that I'm aware of. The numbers that I got were in the ballpark of like 12 megahertz 68,000 systems. So while it isn't as fast as a 15 or 16 megahertz 68,000, it's faster than 8 megahertz 68,000.
Yeah, so it was outpacing the general Amiga, Atari STs, and Macs at the time.
Yeah, and I've done some experiments. I've got an Amiga 500 with a 16 megahertz 68,000 accelerator in it, and just doing that I can switch on and off, and just doing some experiments decoding JPEGs. You know, it kind of confirms this. It's the JPEG decoder software that we've got is using the generic JPEG library, C library, and I think that some of the Amiga stuff that I've seen is you know, hand optimized assembly. But the Amiga, or the MM1 keeps up pretty well with the Amiga until you turn on that 16 megahertz accelerator.
Yeah, but yeah, that I'm showing right now, this is from July 1990. So this is the first time they've actually named the computer here, and it's in the transition between Kenneth Lay Enterprises and Interactive Media Systems. You'll see it actually mentions both companies. But they've actually got like a sample screenshot. It mentions that, you know, this is one of its lower resolution modes, 320 by 400. It can do up to 720 by 560 because it supported overscan.
Yeah.
And they, you know, some of the features here: runs at 50 megahertz, 5 resolution modes, expandable to 9 megs of RAM. Supports animation, lots of software included. And of course, it still says that it'll run thousands of MS-DOS programs, which I don't believe ever happened.
No.
It will work with CDI, etc. Now, just to backtrack a little bit to keep the timelines here, Frank Hogg, which had been selling other 68,000 base systems way before this, like they sold the QT series and stuff, which were meant as industrial. They're not meant for home users. But a bit of a historical thing here is that they actually have, here. So this is from March 1990. So this is after the original MM1 announcement, but it was the very first announcement of the K-Bus, which was actually, you know, built by Hazelwood Computers.
Right.
And that's like what the TC9, TC70 were supposed to hook up to, because they actually have K-Bus connectors. You could hook up multiples of these together, was the eventual plan. But at this point, they rated the K-Bus out for the professional guys, where you could actually put in like 68,030s and 68,020s and math coprocessors and all kinds of stuff. Not cheap.
Yeah, and I loved the idea of that. In fact, I had I bought a TC9 as well. That was the first of the CoCo 4 machines that I got, and I was really looking forward to sticking a TC70 in onto the bus with that. I don't know if that bus connection, like if the K-Bus interface for the TC9 was ever finished. I'm not sure.
Hardware-wise, it was. I did talk to Bob Puppo, who helped design that, and that part was working. Bruce Eisted was starting to work on drivers to support it, because there was a whole IRQ system where you'd get an IRQ saying, I got a result ready for the other computer on the bus here. I mean, that could go either way. The TC70 could call the TC9, the TC9 could call the TC70. or the 68,030, whatever else is on the K bus, and you'd have this whole interrupt system that was basically saying at this patch of memory, I'm either going to have a pointer or the resulting data. Say I did a floating point operation that the TC9 wanted, and you would tell it, send me an IRQ when you got it ready, and then when the IRQ kicked off, you'd go and you'd read that back, or you'd send a command or whatever type thing. The hardware was working. The software had been started on by Bruce, but then Bruce took a job change, had to move. He was setting up a new office, so he completely dropped out. And Bill and I didn't have all the K-bus stuff and the TC70s, so we just took over the TC9 stuff and did the version 2 drivers.
Yeah, okay. And
yeah, so one more I just want to quickly show here. So the corresponding one, like by the time the M1 was actually announced, this is when I think Frank started talking about the TC9 for the first time. So in the June 1990s, like literally the month before the M1 was actually announced by name, the Tomcat was announced, and there's the original first ad for that. And this is the TC70 did not exist yet at this point. And they do mention it's beyond K-bus, but there's a few things here that also ended up not happening. Like one of the things that Bob Puppo had done is he'd done a clock doubler circuit, which Sockmaster did a later version on his page.
Yeah.
And it would basically, give you a pretty good increase in speed. So they claimed it was at least 25% faster. That ended up being unstable, and they had to hand wire every time they were trying to get this, and they eventually just gave up because it was just too labor intensive. So that's not what you got when you bought a TC9. It just ran at 1.78.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to your end of things.
Okay, so let's see. According to Oscar Magazine issue 3, in September of 1990, it said that the editing and layout of that issue, September of 1990, was done on a prototype MM1 using Micromax and, quote, custom formatting and layout routines. Also in that issue, September of 1990, the Delmar System 4 was announced in Oscar Magazine. Now, I know that is similar. I know it's a 68,000 base system on with a motherboard with ISA bus, 16-bit ISA bus. Is that the same as the PT68K or just similar?
I believe it is. In fact, we're about to segue right into one of those when we get to mine.
Okay, because I remember.
Yeah, it was the same motherboard. I think it was just like the packaging, whether you got a WS9 with it, et cetera, was the difference, wasn't it, Rick?
Yeah, because I was getting Radio Electronics magazine at that time, and the PT68K4 was featured in that magazine, like the construction of it. Each month you got a new subsystem, the schematics and everything for that, and you could buy the bare boards as a kit and assemble these things month by month. And I always thought that was I love the idea of being able to take advantage of commodity hardware that way.
Yeah, I remember at CoCo Fest in Chicago when the System 4, and I'm showing the very first Rainbow ad for it, which was from January of 91, where you can see it's the System 4 computer, and it gives you a bunch of different configurations with stuff. But its big selling point was the fact that it had an ISA bus, and you could actually plug in like a VGA card, and as long as you had a driver written for it, you could run the VGA. That's how their G Windows ran. They also had the option of putting an 8086 or an 8088, I can't remember which one it was. So you could literally run DOS programs and it would share the video card type thing. Bounce back and forth.
I think that was an expansion board of some kind that added that hardware, because I don't think that was actually on the motherboard itself. But yeah,
no, that was an extra. Well, it was one of the ISA cards was an 88, but it actually worked. They actually demonstrated that at CoCo Fest. I actually got to see it run.
That's cool.
They were running King's Quest, if I remember correctly.
Right.
Check it out. Sculptor's only $2,500.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, I also put some other things in as a point of reference. I've heard people kind of criticize some of the 68K machines as too little, too late, and to an extent, I'm sure that's true. But at the same time, in October of 1990, Apple introduced a 7.8 megahertz 68,000 base Mac Classic $999, one megabyte of RAM base, a max of 4 meg, and in a configuration with 2 megabytes of RAM and a 40 meg hard drive, it was $2,400. So, you know, Apple was introducing new machines that were very comparable in specs to the MM1 at that time. It didn't last very long, as we'll see coming up, but the MM1 in terms of CPU power was more powerful, had color graphics, you know, than compared to the Mac Classic, and pretty comparable in price to, I would say, you know, less expensive probably, even as a complete system than compared to the rock bottom base price of a Mac Classic.
Yeah, I think the biggest advantage the Mac had, or any of the major league stuff there, was software. Yeah, that was the killer app. There was a ton of them, and yeah.
And I tell you, what's so interesting is seeing that there were emulator programs that would run on the Atari ST and the Amiga at the time, where you get a set of, you know, buy a completely legitimate set of Macintosh ROMs from Apple, plug them in to a little expansion board that plugs into to some, you know, expansion port on the back of the computer, and run Mac OS. And
it's called AMAX.
Yeah, that was one of them. Yeah, and the possibility of doing something like that on OS 9 is kind of tantalizing. Also, there was a port of OS 9 that ran on the Mac under Mac OS.
Yep. There's also the Amiga one too that's very rare. The Atari ST one is probably the most common of the three.
Yeah, I have disk images for the Atari ST one, and I've got an unbelievable pile of vintage computers, but I do not have an Atari ST that I can run them on, and I cannot get them to run on any emulators. Again, tremendously tantalizing, and I've never seen a copy out in the wild of a port of OS 9 to the Amiga.
Just go further. I'm just going to do two other quick ads. These are Frank Hogg ones, but basically his announcement of the TC70, which was definitely following the MM1, trying to get competitive, because it's the same chip, 68070. He did not have the palette controller, right, so only 256 colors. I think it was actually an inferior machine. Now, the one advantage, if it had worked, if it finished the drivers, was the K-bus stuff, of course.
Yeah, if that had worked, because that was I really wanted a TC70 precisely because of how I could kind of seamlessly pivot from the CoCo, use a lot of the stuff that I already had.
Yeah, like Frank explained in one of his presentations here that one of the things you could do on the TC70, or at least was planned for the TC70, is that if it's on the K-bus, you could actually have TC9s as terminals with their own screens and keyboards, and you could put like 10 of them on a 12-slot K-bus. I
loved the idea of that. When I finally called up Frank Hogg and was ready to buy it, he says he wasn't shipping the TC70 at that point, and so that's when I called Blackhawk to look into an MM1.
Yeah, a lot of the stuff that Frank was doing was quite delayed. And I'll show the Tiger, which was a cheaper way to get to this, having a 68000 linked with a K-bus. I don't know if this ever actually came out.
Yeah, I remember those ads too.
But yeah, it's basically a 68000 card for only $130. You plug in the K-bus, and then you had your TC9 and the K-bus backplane, and there's different numbers of slots you could get for each of those, and then you supposedly do the same, you know, interrupt transfer protocol to be able to call back and forth between them. But I don't think that ever got drivers done. I don't know if the board was ever actually sold. Bill and I didn't get any of them. So like we didn't have the K-bus thing. But anyway, that's basically what Frank did on the first gen, spread over a year basically. But the TC70 was definitely meant to be a response to the M1, because the M1 definitely took the mind share far more than, like a lot of people with TC9, like me and Bill. I wanted the backwards compatibility. We were running, you know, CoCo 3s at work and stuff, so I didn't want something where I had to reprogram everything from scratch. But a lot of people wanted to do that big jump, to 16-bit fully, and
Yeah.
and the MM1 had such advanced graphics and stuff at the time. Yeah, it was a nice machine.
So were any of these machines actually a CoCo?
The TC9 is the only one that would qualify, I would say.
TC9 was pretty close. It ran pretty much all of the CoCo OS 9 software.
And the basic software, if it didn't do machine language subroutines, so calling keyboard and stuff, Chris Burke actually made TC9 Extended Basic, which I'm going to try to get to boot here. It's unreliable. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't.
That was the other thing that I found. See, the problem I had with my TC9 was that I'd been using a Disto Supercontroller 2 with a 4-in-1 board on a CoCo repack in a mini tower case, CoCo 3. And I tried to use that. I wanted to just take that whole thing and plug it into the TC9. And the TC9 did not like the Disto Supercontroller 2. Didn't work. I could get it to boot off of a Tandy floppy controller, but not the Disto. Don't know why.
I never tried it with the Disto 2. I had tried mine with the RS-DOS, like the standard Disk Basic controller, and a J&M. And that J&M worked. Actually, it's the one that's still in there.
Okay. Yeah, I could never get it to work. And without that, I didn't have a hard drive on it.
Yeah, I had a Birkin mine.
Yeah,
which
yeah.
I pounded the heck out of, but
so yeah. Anyway, sometime in 1990, the IMS trifold brochure came out, which I kind of incorporated into this thing, which I'm not showing, but on the screen. But anyway,
well, you can share that screen if you're looking at it on the screen.
Let me see if I can share it here in. See.
I do want to mention Rainbow reviewed the first 3 in late 1991, and it was ironic because the M1 was the first one announced, and the Delmar System 4 was the last of the 3 basic ones announced, and they reviewed them in the exact opposite order because that was when actual machines were ready to send. So the M1 got reviewed last because I think they were trying to get FCC approval to sell it as a complete system.
Uh-huh. That's not it. Hang on here. Now I worked out a way that I could get rid of some of this stuff. Okay. So are you seeing that?
And it says M1 in big letters?
Yep. All right. So which keyboard do you do this on? I've got like 3 or 4 keyboards on my desk here. All right. Now, what if I do that? I can't see my screen now because I made it full screen. Because is this still on?
Yeah.
Okay. So did you see a change to the next slide?
Not yet.
What about that?
No,
Nope.
we're still on MM1.
Oh, all right. So I'm going to have to, hang on.
They're changed.
Now it is.
Yeah, okay. But that's, all right. Let me,
In fact, that picture in the middle is from the Rainbow review.
that is,
one.
yeah. Yeah, that wasn't actually on the trifold. I kind of incorporated bits of it here, but let me try this one more time. And then I'm gonna go into OBS and let's see. Well, I may not be able to do it the way I want to. It's all right. I'll have to bring back my little sidebar so I can move from. Oh. Not that one. Sorry, guys. I'll slide layout. That's not it either. Okay, I can do it this way. Does that work?
You can probably use the arrow keys too.
Yeah, I thought I could, but it didn't seem to do what I wanted. All right, so the text here is from that 1990 trifold brochure, which I still have around here somewhere, but digging it out will be the new issue. But yeah, the picture is from Rainbow Magazine, so here's their text that was on that 1990 brochure, highlighting that they did some surveys and whatnot to get people's feature creep, and that they're using the same same chips.
Yeah, the Philips Signetics chipset, the 60076, or whatever the graphics chain was, is all from Compact.
CDI.
Yeah, CDI.
66470 is the name of that chip.
Right, thank you.
And I think that was developed for CDI use, but it is not. I don't think there were any commercial CDI players that used just that chip. There may have been some development systems that used two of them, because you could use them in just one of those chips does not give the high color display that you can get on a CDI player, but it does only 8-bit color, maximum 256 or 16 colors. But if you use two of them in conjunction, you can get a high color display. And two serial ports. Actually, if you have the I/O board on it, you've got, I don't know, there's serial ports out the wazoo on this thing. There's at least 4, maybe 5 serial ports. If
yeah, the second I/O board.
Yeah, a dual parallel port. Unfortunately, it doesn't have quite all the same lines that are in. It's enough to do a basic printer port, but it doesn't have a lot of the lines that would have been useful for some of the parallel port devices that were available in those days. Like
or like the old bi-directional stuff where you could actually remotely log into a PC with a parallel port and that kind of thing.
Right, but since you had 2 ports, in principle, you could wire those things up so that you use some of the lines from the second port to fill in. And I had wild dreams of writing a driver for the parallel port QuickCam, Connectix QuickCam, back in those days. Even to the point where I signed the little NDA to get the tech info for how to operate the QuickCam, but never finished that project. Yeah, 2 bidirectional parallel ports, SCSI adapter, works with the CM8 monitor, 779 for a personal MM1, which is just the motherboard, which gives you 1 megabyte of RAM that is shared with it's the whole, all of RAM, system RAM, plus part of that is video RAM. If you have the extended kit, which has an I/O board in it, then you get and then if you add two 30-pin SIMs, you can get to 3 meg or 9 meg of RAM, and the extra memory, the 1 meg on the motherboard basically becomes like Amiga chip RAM, which is in other words it's dedicated to DMA stuff and video, and the extended memory is the system RAM, and that also speeds things up because I guess there's less, I don't know, bus contention or something.
Yeah, I'm showing the original price list they published in Rainbow in September 1990. They're actually mentioning they're going to be showing this stuff off at the Atlanta CoCo Fest that year too.
Yeah,
like the regular, the personal, the extended, etc. Like you said, it was for the time, I mean, considering what it was competing against, you know, like the Macs and the Atari STs and the Amigas, it was actually very well priced.
Yeah. So
I'll let you go back to your screen.
yeah. So this is more stuff from the text from the brochure that they had, and that famous astronaut EVA photo, which we'll see. I've got a version of that on my MM1 that we can look at, and so then here's a comparison table. You know, obviously cherry-picked stuff, but it gives you an idea. You know, the MM1 versus the Mac Plus, the Amiga 2000, the PCAT, and a CoCo 3, and the 16 million color palette really makes a difference if you're looking at digital photos.
I'm trying to remember, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you had a 16 million color palette to choose from, but the highest mode was 256 color?
Yes. But choosing 256 colors out of 16 million is much better than a fixed palette of 256 colors.
Yeah, because I think the original, like, without the palette controllers, like RRRGGGBB or something like that.
Probably.
Can't remember.
Yeah, probably something like that. Yeah. And yeah, they had a network interface, which was really just a I2C header that, in theory, could be used to network MM1s together. I don't know if this was ever done. I've never seen any drivers for it, for anything, but it's still a tantalizing possibility to be able to connect something to the and the I2C controller was I think built into the 68070.
One thing I wanted to ask about the graphics resolution, I believe any of the modes that were using the 400 vertical versus the 200, that used interlaced, right? Like you got a 30 hertz refresh, basically.
Yes.
Which I think the Amiga and some others did too for their higher resolution. So
yeah, here's my question: was the MM1 obsolete on introduction? And my argument is that no, though it probably wasn't a whole lot of life left in that class of computers. And by the time these things, because of the kind of production problems and things that plagued these computers, you know, by the time you could actually get your hands on one, maybe it was. But at the time, Apple was introducing the Mac Classic. You could buy Atari STs that were very comparable, and Amiga 500s that were very, very comparable, and you could get, you know, they were still selling Turbo XT motherboards in Computer Shopper, and 286 motherboards, so it certainly was a viable computer for a lot of things, at least potentially. And we already addressed the clock speed. Here's some of the software, and I can demonstrate some of this of the original MM1 software that I've got here. Right now, the screen I've got up is showing EtherGUI, which is SubEtha Software's desktop. The MM1 shipped with K-Windows, which is comparable to WinDent on the CoCo 3.
Okay.
Which Shell uses. Yeah.
But no multi-view equivalent.
Right. It's I mean, WinDent came with multi-view. Before that, without multi-view, you had GRF, which, if I am recalling correctly, is the same system calls, but with not quite as many, without some of the extra features of WinDent.
Yeah, WinDent basically added all the drop-down menus and all that kind of support, the automatic mouse things where to tell you I'm in a control area, whatever, that kind of stuff. Like that was all WinDent. GraphDriver was the same between both, like the actual low-end graphics driver.
Yes.
There was more the high-end calls for doing system calls for reading the mouse. Did you select a menu option and all that kind of stuff? That was WinDent. GraphDriver just did the basic graphic stuff, like drawing lines and circles and things.
So on the MM1, you have WinIO, which is I think it's like the GRF-DRV plus WinDent.
Okay.
So you have all that support built in, but it did not ship with a desktop. So no multi-view.
No GUI basically built in.
Yeah, no G Shell equivalent. When we get back to the timeline, I can show you that there were at least 2 desktops available from third parties. So yeah, not a lot of software. Although we'll see that eventually by the end of the 90s, there was quite a bit of software, but it all just kind of came out little bits at a time, and so there was probably, but at the point that most people had and were using their MM1s, there wasn't a lot of software, and a lot of it kind of came out later on, and by the time some of those other programs became available, people had moved on from, there weren't that many people who were actively using the MM1 anymore. So here's back to the timeline. So in 1991, at some point, I haven't, maybe late 1990, I haven't been able to find any good dates on this. Atari introduces the Mega STE, which was a 68,000 based, running at 8 or 16 megahertz. 1 mega base RAM, 4 meg max RAM. Again, we can do 8 mega RAM, not including video memory. So again, major computer manufacturers coming out with machines pretty comparable in performance around this time. I mean, also, of course, you could get much more powerful computers, but
cost,
very high cost, right?
Right.
In January, there's an IMS ad. In January, there's a issue of Oscar magazine. There's an IMS ad saying 2 years ago the first MM1 design was laid out. So kind of reiterating the timeline there. December, there's a Rainbow article that says that there have been production problems and delays, and that may be their attempt to get it FCC certified. and the MM1 article is the last of the CoCo 4 of the 3 CoCo 4 articles that comes out December of
yeah, they came out, the reviews in Rainbow came out the opposite order that they were announced.
Yeah. So here are my copies of the magazine. We've got this one is the which one is this? This is the TC9 issue. Here's the Delmar System 4 issue, and there's the MM1 issue.
Yeah, I've actually got the PDFs of these too, if you want me to show those.
Yeah, I've got those also. So then in 1992, we have the release of version 38. Now, I don't think that necessarily means that there were 37 previous releases, but a version that they called 38 of K-Windows. I think this was an update though to the original ones. So this kind of shows the ongoing development work that Kevin Darling was doing on K-Windows. Also in March of '92, Commodore announces the Amiga 600. Now that was very cheap, but I don't think that an Amiga 600 at $499 included a hard drive. It did have a PCM-CIA interface, if I understand correctly, and possibly IDE on the motherboard. I'm not certain about that. But 6 megabytes official maximum RAM. Probably you could go more than that with third-party upgrades. But June 18, Steven Seneker uploads his K-Windows GUI font utility to CompuServe. June 15, Kevin Darling uploads improved mouse drivers for version 38 of K-Windows. July, Tim Kienzl uploads upgraded MM1 drivers on Delphi. September, Apple calls it quits on the Mac Classic. October, there's a release of GIF show for the MM1. I think maybe that was Mike Hayland. November 5, CGFX.L, so the C graphics library, version 5, released by Mike Hayland. So quite a bit of development going on here. 1992, November 14, Mike Sweet releases version 1 of the K-Windows reference guide. Basically just gives you the system calls for doing graphics in K-Windows. November 29, new MM1 serial port drivers uploaded to CompuServe by Mark Griffith. In November, K-Windows version 48 released. Also in November, the Extractor is a GUI file unarchiver for K-Windows released by Keith Bauer. So point and click, extract files from your archive files. And at some point in '92, we have documentation for the BGFX4 graphics library. That's graphics library for Basic 09 or Microsoft Basic, which did not come with the MM1. I think you had to buy that from Kevin Darling, and I bought a copy of it at Rainbow Fest, or not Rainbow Fest, CoCo Fest, in '98 maybe. So a little bit later, but here's my official copy of BGFX version 4 by Kevin Darling. Atari discontinues the Mega STE sometime in 1992. January 93, Mike Sweet releases version 2 of the K-Windows reference guide. In February, there are updated versions of standard bitmaps file. There is a demo version of Joel Hegberg's Right GUI word processor uploaded onto Genie. And you can still get that demo version. I think it's also on RTSI. And I just recently got.
You'll have to hide your.
Oh yeah. Let's see here. Just a sec.
Also, somebody has an open mic. We're getting some crinkling noises and stuff there. If you can mute your mic well. Just presenting.
So this, I really wanted this when it came out, and I think that for whatever reason I didn't like my machine. It took me a while. I didn't get my machine until like '94, and I think that by the time that I had to, it took me a little while to get a working I/O board on it and all kinds of stuff. And I think that by the time I was ready to spring for a copy of this, Sub-Etha was kind of not in the business anymore. I think partly, at least, because Alan Huffman went to work for Microware,
yeah,
and was kind of a conflict of interest, I suppose, to sell software. So I never got a copy of this back in the day, but I got this recently from Alan Huffman, and I actually wrote a story that I put in Boundary Shock Quarterly magazine. I wrote this on the MM1 this fall in Right word processor. But this is a GUI word processor, and you can see, the menus here, edit menus. You can copy, paste, and so on. Joel Hegberg also wrote a clipboard library for copying and pasting between applications in K-Windows. So there's search menu, style menu. You can do plain, bold, italics, underline, color. Let's just do see, that makes it boldface. Underline. Italics. Yeah, so I would have really loved to have used this program back in the day, but I had fun writing this story on it recently. In May of '93, Eric Critchlow uploads Shellmate, which is I think he uploaded that to CompuServe. That's a two-pane GUI file manager along the lines of Norton Commander or Directory Opus on the Amiga. And we can look at that over here. Let me make that visible again. So over here, you select the source or click over here to select the destination, and you can see the red bar at the bottom switches to indicate which one you're working with. So if I go over here to the destination, I can set it to R0, and so now that's looking at the RAM disk, and I can take one of these files over here, or in fact, you can just click on several of them, and then click copy, and now it copies them over here to the RAM disk. I can go click on that one, and these are GIFs. I can click on GIF show or GIF show. I'm not gonna, and view the file from within Shellmate, or launch the viewer from Shellmate. So that's a pretty nifty thing. In June 8 of that year of '93, Joel Hegberg uploads Russ McGee's S-Track Amiga mod file player to Genie, along with STR-Man, S-Track Manager, I guess, which is his own front-end program for queuing up mod files to play. So this is to play, Amiga mod or tracker files. There was another tracker. It was one that was basically generic Unix C code, and it kind of, sort of, almost works on an unaccelerated MM1, but it's the code is not very optimized, and so it doesn't really work very well unless you have an accelerator. But S-Track.
What sort of audio hardware did the MM1 have?
What sort of audio hardware?
Yeah.
It's got two 8-bit DAC ADC chips.
Right, Orchestra 9.
And hooked up to DMA too, if I remember.
Yeah, they're connected to the DMA controller, and they they're analog devices made them, and they do both DAC and ADC. So they're used for audio output, they're used for audio capture, and they're used for the joystick. And so you have stereo 8-bit audio. Let's see. I'll just play a little bit of one of these mod files so you can see that hopefully hear it play. This is S-Track, which I think was, according to Joel Hegberg, was written by Russ McGee. And I think this is handwritten assembly language.
The player.
Yeah. You get that?
Yeah, we can hear it.
So that gives you an idea. It does play. I hope you're able to hear that a little bit.
Now, can you still multitask while that's running? Or does that kind of like lock it up for a bit?
Let's see. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So the DMA really works well for that.
Yeah. It will slow down. Yeah, I was hoping to put together a demo program that would play audio and run a slideshow at the same time, but I wasn't able to get that really finished. I made some progress in making that work, but yeah, and you can play wave files and there's at least one player that does use DMA to do that. So you can have wave files playing in DMA while you're doing other stuff as well. Now I started this up from EtherGUI, and the way I did that was I dragged the icon for this picture file down to this little box down here in the lower right, and which says this is the thing we're going to do that we're going to load into the program. And then I've got an icon here that I made for GIF show, and double clicked on that, and that opened it up over here. So August 25, Joel Hegberg releases a FN keys program, which allows you to configure the function keys on your keyboard in K-Windows. September 5 of 93, Eric Critchlow uploads a program called ImageMaster 2.5, which is a sprite editor. He uploaded on CompuServe. And he also uploaded a game board editor called Gambit to CompuServe. And we do have copies of those programs still. I think they made their way onto Delphi and possibly RTSI. And by the way, I have started a spreadsheet that I have like in Google Docs that has a list of software that runs on the MM1, mostly stuff specifically written for the MM1. I didn't focus too much on just generic OS9 software, and whether or not, and I have in different columns, I have where they were posted originally, on whether, let's see, we've got Genie, CompuServe, Delphi, and RTSI.
BBSs? And BBSs probably too.
I'm sure there were some BBSs as well, but I don't know. I don't have any file listings for those, but I do have file listings for the ones that I mentioned. I think they're on CoCopedia.
Okay.
And so I tried to find like as many of those programs as I could from things that I've already downloaded or you know things that are out there. And I tried to make a list, and I can share this with people later, of what software I think, as far as I know, still exists. You know, we still have copies of, and where they originally perhaps came from.
In this all the software, is this MM1 specific or OSK specific? Like does it also run on the other OS9 machine?
Some of both, but what I'm trying to show right now is stuff that is mostly MM1 specific, in particular K-Windows software.
Right.
So there were 3 different Windows systems that showed up on the 68K OS9 machines in the 90s that I'm aware of. And K-Windows was sort of the native one for the MM1. It came with the MM1. G-Windows was a system that was used, I think, in like embedded OS9 systems, but it was a graphical user interface, and I believe that ran on the TC70 as well.
I think K-Windows is on the TC72 because it used the same graphics chip, just not the palette controller. So I think there was a version of that as well.
Yeah, I knew that there was a possibility that was running. I'm not sure whether I wasn't sure whether that actually saw the light of day or not. But
yeah, G-Windows ran on OS9 68K, OS 9000, some other operating systems as well, and it was meant for industrial controllers because it had built-in widgets. You could say hook up a gauge to it, and it would actually live update the pointer on the gauge on the screen based on the hardware input by itself. You didn't even have to write code. So for that kind of thing, it was awesome. We used it at work.
Yeah, and I have a picture here. This is just a GIF that shows roughly what G-Windows looked like.
I wish I'd kept my copy from work there. It was kind of impressive.
Yeah, that's just a picture of what G-Windows looked like, and supposedly we'll get to it in a little bit here, but well, I'll come to that when I get to it. So in September of '93, the World of 68 Micros, which is another one of the print magazines at the time, reported that Blackhawk, who at that time was a distributor of the MM1 and other and MM1 and other OS9 software, I think, and hardware. Blackhawk announced that a K-Windows port to the Delmar System 4 and 5 was due mid-1994. So supposedly, Kevin Darling was working on that at some point. I don't know whether that ever was finished or not, but that was reported in September of '93. Now, here's the thing. If K-Windows had really been available for, a wide variety of computers running OS9 68000, could that have, you could then theoretically have run a lot of these programs, these GUI programs on all of them, given the limitations of the hardware. But in principle, you could, probably say a 16 color program would run on many of those machines. But I just don't think that ever really got into as many of those systems. And it could have been the same if it was G-Windows, or MGR running on all these systems. You could have had more of a unified market, so to speak, for a unified platform or target for people to write and port programs for.
Yeah, G-Windows would have been good for that, except that Steve Adams, the original author for GIS back out of Germany, charged quite a bit for it. So It was not cheap.
It was not cheap. And yeah, and whereas, K-Windows came with the computer, at least if you got an MM1. So also in September of '93, in the world of 68 Micros, Blackhawk was announcing that they had Paint, PixUtils, and Hypertext Desktop available for the MM1. Let me put that back up. So, so Hypertech, does anybody remember who?
Hypertech was Eric Critchlow, Mike Holland, Chet Simpson. I can't remember who else was in there.
Yeah.
They're all from Las Vegas area.
Gotcha. Yeah. And so they had it looks like a desktop environment that was apparently available by September of 1993. At least, Blackhawk was advertising it. I don't have a copy of that. Don't know what it looks like. Don't have any pictures of it, so I don't know. But apparently, there was that was one desktop available. November 1, John Wainwright releases a port of GhostScript 2.6.1 for the MM1. So this is a PostScript interpreter for the MM1, and I have run. I've played around with GhostScript with these his ports here a little bit on the MM1. It's pretty slow. It's pretty slow and fairly limited, but it does work. And apparently, it was possible to view some PDF files with at least one version of this GhostScript port. Andrzej Kotansky, and I'm sure I'm pronouncing his name wrong. I think he's Polish. His name is spelled Andrjez, but I think it's something along the lines of Andre, but I'm sure I've got it wrong. Anyway, Kotansky poured he did a bunch of pretty cool stuff a little later on in the 90s, and he describes using using GhostScript and having it convert each page of a PDF file to a GIF, and then he wrote his own GIF viewer, and that where he could page through those pages out of a PDF on the MM1, which is pretty cool. November of '93, Blackhawk Enterprises reached agreement with IMS to take over production and sale of the MM1. Reported in February, reported in February issue of 68 Micros. I think February '94 is when this was learned. Quote, on contacting the manufacturing subcontractor, I found that 50 extended systems was in inventory at their plant. Those systems are complete, minus EEPROMs and PAL chips, so I arranged for someone to program those chips and announced a sale, says David Graham of Blackhawk Enterprises. And
now, the 68340 accelerator for the MM1 actually came from Blackhawk. It was first advertised in November '93 of 68 Micros. Do you have that in your list too? Or?
Yeah, I thought I mentioned that somewhere, but maybe not. We may not have gotten to that yet. I don't know. Yeah, why don't I see it there? I probably just didn't notice it until later. But yeah,
I can share it. I got the ad here if you want me. I can share it.
Yeah, you can do that.
Take a quick look at it here. If I can find the right window. That's it. Yeah, so here's Blackhawk on the right-hand side. You can see announcing the 68340 accelerator card from M1, which is basically 68020 base, not a 68000. So this is going from a 16-bit chip to a full 32-bit chip. So it's a 68020 core minus the bit field instructions. It also came with 3 serial ports versus the 2, and this has hardware handshaking added in too. No more 64K limit on DMA access and EEPROM boots from the hard drive. So, and they give some speed comparisons here.
Yeah.
Both taking existing code and just running 68000 code, and it's twice as fast or 2.5 times faster. But if you compile for the 32-bit chip, then it's like 5 to 6 times faster.
Yeah, and so that you would unplug your 68070 from its socket, and plug this accelerator in place. Now I don't have one of those, so I can't demonstrate it. But I think Carl Kreider designed that, maybe.
Yeah, I believe that is correct. He did that one or the next one, I think. I can't remember which one.
Maybe both. Sometime in late 1993, Commodore discontinues the Amiga 600, and shortly thereafter, they discontinue everything. So 1994, just as a little point of reference, I could still find a 10 megahertz Turbo OXT motherboard advertised for sale for $59 in Computer Shopper, alongside a 46DX4100 for $798. And I assume I think these are just motherboards, both, right? Probably motherboard with CPU, I assume. And Pentium call for pricing. So, yeah, there were much more powerful computers coming out at that time, but the $798 would almost get you an MM1, and that did not include memory, hard drive, floppy drive, case, power supply, all the rest of that. Of course, if you had a case from a previous computer, you could slap it in there. But January of '94, Blackhawk offers MM1 systems for sale. The subcontractor revised their claim. Now it's only 42 populated CPU boards and 63 bare I/O boards. February of '94, Frank Hogg says that there's an MM1 version of G Windows, quote, now shipping $200. That I had not been aware of that until I was researching stuff for this show, and I was kind of gobsmacked. And
I don't think that was ever released.
That's what I want to know. It's like, did that ever really happen, or was it just just vaporware? But that would have been really interesting. But I wouldn't have bought it. I wouldn't have spent $200 on G Windows.
And that was cheap for G Windows. I think our copy of Workforce 9000 was $400.
Yeah. Frank Hogg was also selling the Kix 20 and Kix 30 systems, which were Hazelwood manufactured 68020 and 68030 boards, and notably the TC9 and the TC70 by February of 1994 were not in this ad.
Yeah, they were gone.
So that was they just weren't sold that long. March 18, Andrei Kotansky releases a fix for the top. Top was the OS9 project, which I think was a collection of software ported from Unix and or programs written to make OS9 behave more Unix-like. So releases a fix to the ncurses library included that came with Top to make it work properly on the MM1. So by March 18, 1994, there was ncurses, which is a basically it works with term info or term cap, one or the other, to allow you to position text anywhere on a terminal screen. So and probably do more than that, maybe text-based menus. I don't know what all it does, but a lot of
Joel, I just want to mention here, like we're already an hour and a quarter in here. We still got 3 other presenters, so right. I don't know if there's certain parts you can highlight, and it'll be a bit more to leave some time for us.
You bet.
We definitely want to see some demos too, like some of the other stuff you got here too. So.
Yeah. Okay, March 68 Micros. Color Systems is offering K-Windows Chess, X10 Master Control, Solitaire variations, an OS9 game pack. In April, Blackhawk actually ships the first MM1 that they had, could make available. In May, Mike Hayland releases version 2.2 of GIF Show, compiled with GCC and runs faster than earlier versions. May 68 micros says, I think it's probably the Blackhawk, I don't know, ad. There's Fantasy, BGFX, MM1 systems available, and 68340 accelerators. And also in that issue, Blackhawk, David Graham gives an update saying delivers are happening, but slowly. And Wind.io version 52 and BGFX 4 are announced. August 19, Eric Critchlow announces Gold Runner 2000 on CompuServe, which I got my copy. I bought this from Eric personally at CoCo Fest in Chicago CoCo Fest in 1998, I think. I was living in Elkhart, Indiana at that time, and so I got out to a couple CoCo Fests in 98, 99, and here are my floppy disks, and we can see that.
Don't forget to hide your screen there.
Yep. I'm not going to play very much of it because I am miserably, wretchedly bad at load runner type games.
Plus, we're pressed for time.
Yeah. He also put out another game called GR Classic, Gold Runner Classic.
Yeah, that wasn't a movable, sizable window, if I remember. The other one's a full screen. Yeah.
Let's see. So here's my
Like the gradual crossfade there.
yeah. Yeah, I had to modify the I/O board here to get the joystick to work right. Turn that down.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious why you had to modify it because I have that same manual,
Yeah.
And it says that it works with the Tandy Deluxe joystick.
Yeah, well, it was just a problem with the joystick interface. Got a little Blade Runner action going on here.
Of course, years later, Chet Simpson released a version for the CoCo 3.
Yeah, it's a direct challenge with Eric.
And yeah, the challenge was to better this, which he did.
Yeah, it plays the same musical background soundtracks, but it's a much faster paced game.
Yeah. So I'm just going to kill that. I don't know how to do it, but
yeah, you're running a fair bit of processes there.
yeah, I am. Which one is it?
Okay, yeah, it says here, note, it turns out that some of the earlier MM1 I/O boards have 100 ohm resistors installed. As R13 and R14, this causes problems.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what I had to do. All right.
I would just hit the highlights for now because we're definitely running out of time for Brian, me, and.
All right.
Hey, Curtis.
Yep.
I don't have anybody scheduled in the hour after your slot. So
So we have a bit of extra time. Okay, I didn't realize that.
Oh yeah,
so.
yeah. We've got an hour and 45
You know us too well.
Yeah, sorry, hour and 25 minutes or so of room here. So just keep rolling.
All right. So in September of '94, Subetha was offering a CoCo Fest simulator. Now this was a port from the CoCo 3 version, and also Right, and which I've already showed, and Ethagui, which I've already showed. So in September of '94, this is when I actually called up Frank Hogg to ask if he had TC70s available, and he said no. I called Blackhawk and talked to David Graham and asked if he, because I did see ads for that in probably World of 68 Micros, and he said, yeah, problem is we're I need somebody to stuff memory boards and IO boards. And so I said, man, I'm striking out. And so after I hung up, I got to thinking about it and thinking, you know, I did electronics assembly as a summer job in college 2 years in a row. I could stuff his boards. I could do that. And so I called him back, and so he shipped me, and I don't remember the exact order of things, but he shipped me an MM1 personal system and a bunch of boards, and then I got a loan from my dad and bought a bunch of parts and set about to assemble these things. On September 9, I discovered from an old receipt that I still have, I ordered parts for version 3 IO boards. So these were a new version that hadn't been shipped before, and 8 meg RAM backplane boards. So they moved the memory from the IO board onto the backplane board, and so I assembled some of these things. I could not get the SCSI interface on the IO board to work. Just couldn't get it to work. But I also have a receipt that says that on September 30, I next day shipped an assembled 8 meg memory board to David Graham, Caraval, and Huffman at the Atlanta CoCo Fest. And on October 6th, I shipped 4 more 8 meg boards to Blackhawk. So I was making the memory expansion boards, and right here are those bare boards. I still have a small supply of bare 8 meg RAM boards, and here is a stack of version 3 IO boards that work except for the SCSI interface. I can't think of his name right now. There's a guy who Ray Patterson, lived in Arkansas, and he did rework and stuff for I think probably for IMS, and then again also for Blackhawk. And he worked on trying to get those things working. And I got an email from him, or probably in the early 2000s, saying that he finally got a version 3 IO board working. There was a manufacturing defect where there was a one of the pins in the 50-pin SCSI header was tied to ground and shouldn't have been, and so he had to drill that out with a very fine drill bit just over the size of the through hole to clear that short, and then run a little bodge wire, and he got it to work. There may also have been a race condition, a logic race. There's 2 PAL chips on that board, and that may be involved as well. I tried the same fix that Ray Patterson did, and I still have yet to get it to work. But I did recently get some 7 nanosecond very fast gal chips, and once I've got a since this is the Tandy Retro Show, I'll say I have a Tandy 3000 or Tandy 4000, which is a 68 or 386 PC that I have a device programmer on, and that's what I use to program the EEPROMs, the PALs, and the gal chips. And the hard drive on that failed not too long ago, and so I have to rebuild that machine, and then I can try again to program a 7 nanosecond gal and see if that finally fixes it. But I had traded a different programmer to Ray Patterson for an older version of the IO board, and that's what I'm still using to this day. So 1995. Let's go back here. In November of 94, in 68 Micros, World of 68 Micros announces that Kevin Darling has shipped source code to a new team to maintain K-Windows. And I think at least one of those people is Boise Pete, and I don't know who else may have been involved with that. In January, Boise releases version 54 of K-Windows. Andrei Katansky in March releases 2 versions of JPEG Show to decode and view JPEGs on the MM1 and MM1A. March 15th, Subetha releases a screensaver for the MM1. And in March, also Hawksoft, Chris Hawks, has a clock spelled with a K, which I assume relates to K-Windows. I assume a graphical clock display program, a virtual CD player, which is a CD audio player, which will work with a SCSI CD-ROM drive, a wave audio player, recorder, and editor. Wish I had a copy of that, and a Pong game. John Wainwright in May releases a updated version of GhostScript port. And in May 28, Joel Hegberg releases his clipboard library as a proposed standard. Also in May, Blackhawk starts selling the MM1B, which is the ISA bus machine with MGR for a GUI, and that's an open source GUI that started in Unix world. September of 95, Katansky releases JPEG Show version 3 which he releases with source code. And November, Boise releases version 56 of K-Windows, which is, I think, the last final version, and that's what I've got running here. In December, Andrei Katansky releases JPEG or GIF view and describes how to use it in conjunction with GoScript. February 96, Digigrade Productions' Dave Pellerito announces a graphic adventure system with adventures expected in late February of 96. I don't know if this actually ever came about. In April, Boise releases some updated drivers for the MM1 and the MM1A, the 68340 version. May and June, Whitman Computer Products is selling Gold Runner 2000, KChess, CirCAD, so some kind of a circuit board CAD program. Really wish I had a copy of that. Desktamer Personal Information Manager, LA Term, LA Dial, LA Phone, LA Fax, Info Express. I'm not sure exactly what that is. X10 Home.
That was an email reader system that was out on the CoCo as well.
Oh, okay. And a CoCo OS 9 emulator, which I've found. I'm not sure if it's that one or another one, but there is source code that I've found for a CoCo 6809 emulator, but it's compiled for 020 and above, and I don't know whether they use any of like the virtualization capabilities of the 020 or something where it couldn't be compiled on the 070 or 68,000, or whether they just didn't because it was too slow. I don't know.
I remember them demoing one of the emulators like this at CoCo Fest in Chicago, and it ran about 20% the speed of a real CoCo, so it was pretty slow.
It still would have been useful for some kind of where it didn't matter that much. But and they were also selling a WCP 306 single board computer, probably the same machine as the MM1B, I suspect.
Yes. Yeah.
With MGR. So I think we can be pretty confident that MGR GUI did really exist and did run on that board. July, August, they were going to bi-monthly by that point. July and August of 96, Hawksoft is selling CDF CD-ROM file manager for the MM1. Eddie Coons puts out an article in the September-October issue explaining MM1 hard disk partitioning, and on November 16th of 96, GoScript version 4.03 port was released by John Wainwright, but he says that that's probably too slow to be used on an unaccelerated machine. And finally, the last little bits here, John Strong in July and August is selling graphics tools, a starter pack, B-Show, which is for showing BMP files, and Painter. I got these at CoCo Fest, and in November and December, Boise does an MM1 survey in, I think it's probably World of 68 Micros. I don't know, what became of that survey, but it was basically, how many people are using these machines and how much memory do you have and all that kind of stuff. February 8, Eric Critchlow releases Iron Curtain, which is a Tetris clone for the MM1. And Andrei Katansky releases ILBM View for the MM1 in March of 98, which is for Amiga ILBM, not hold and modify, but 1 to 8-bit plane images. So black and white, 16 color, like it could, there were some 256 color images that are ILBMs that will display on the MM1. The MM1's native file format for graphics was the CDI IFF file format. IFF was really just a container. And the CDI format is 4 or 8 bits per pixel, chunky with a color map style images. Katansky also releases PCX View to view 256 color PCX images, which were in use on PCs at the time, and BMP View for 256 color BMP images. And in March 27 of 98, Katansky releases a port of Jeff Puskancer's NetPBM graphics manipulation and conversion suite, which has any graphics file format you can imagine. Just about you could load up in that and then convert through. It's all Unix style pipes, so you can pipe the output of this utility into the input of that utility and convert one file format to another and do all kinds of stuff. And in April, on April 3rd of that year, I modified Katansky's JPEG Show version 3.0, where I added support for Hegberg's clipboard library. So, because I wanted to, the JPEG viewer, took a little while to load up a JPEG, so I wanted to, after I'd waited that long to see it, I wanted to be able to save it back out as a CDI IFF file, which loads up, almost instantaneously on the MM1. And so what I did was I wrote a very simple little program to take the image data out of the clipboard and save it as an IFF file. And so what I did was I added the capability, one little command line flag to JPEG Show, that when you finish the program, when you close the image, it would write the image data into the clipboard. So you view the file, write the image data into the clipboard, and then you could later save the clipboard as an IFF file to convert things. Because I didn't know about the NetPBM program, but I'm kind of glad I didn't, because that software is very generic C code, and it's fairly slow, very, very versatile, but fairly slow. March and April of 98, Blackhawk says that they have data windows available. That was available from Alpha Software Technologies. That was also available on the CoCo 3, and it had been ported to the MM1. I have serial number 1. Possibly the only copy ever sold. I have no idea. But I've got, and I have a copy of Data Windows for the CoCo as well. But I've also got it for the MM1. Blackhawk says they've got model rocketry tools, which sounds cool. I wish I knew what those were. MM1, MM1A, and MM1B hardware and software available. And finally, October of 98, Mike Knudsen releases Ultimuse for the MM1 as freeware. He'd been selling it up to that point, but October of 98, he gifts it to the community, and you can still download it from RTSI, I think. That's it for my timeline. If there's other things you want me to demonstrate on the MM1, programs you'd like me to run, let me know, and I can do it. I can also quickly show you the hardware. I've got the
One thing I'm trying to remember, the MM1's graphics chip, I think everything you do, including text screens, is all actually a graphics screen, right? There's no separate hardware text mode.
That's right. So the early ones from IMS were in a desktop case. I've got mine in a well, Blackhawk was shipping them in a mini tower case in '94. Here's mine. I think I put some high intensity LEDs in for the turbo and power lights, and I think they were expected a lower voltage, and I burned them out. So I need to put some resistors in there and put some new ones in. But I do have my 3-segment display saying OS9. I thought that was appropriate. I've got my key lock up here set up so that I can turn it, and when it boots, it puts the boot ROM into a diagnostic mode, which I don't know how to use. I think it's basically a little monitor program. I've got a zip drive hooked up. I've got the case off so you can see inside. I put my CPU board on the top. I did have a couple years ago. I had my palette controller chip burn out, and I had to replace that. So I've put let's see. I don't know if you can see it, but probably too dark. I put a heat sink on it now to protect it. The I/O board's on the bottom. On the back, the I/O board is down on the bottom. I've got the mouse plugged into DB9 serial port there. I've got the audio and joystick cables plugged in there. There's the AT keyboard, actually XT keyboard connector. I've got various serial ports here. The RGB out comes here and goes to the CM8 or whichever monitor I'm using with it. Got a spare serial port there. Those are the parallel ports, not being used for much these days. And here is, there was not originally any external SCSI, but I bought an adapter from, I think, Amiga Kit in the UK to go from a 50-pin internal SCSI to a 25-pin external SCSI, and I got that hooked up to my zip drive. And I have a blue SCSI in here. I've burned through 2 or 3 spinning rust drives, and now I'm running a blue SCSI, which I really, really like. So I could.
One thing I think you should demonstrate, because you were kind of running in the background during the main show here, but it wasn't zoomed up, is some of the graphic animation stuff, like movie clips and stuff.
Yeah. Let's see. I killed the wrong thing. I don't know how to quit this game. Oh no, it's quit. Okay. All right. All right. It's not where it was. It's
Because I know that was one of the selling points they demoed at the CoCo Fest. There were some of the animations that were based on
Yeah.
I can't remember the Amiga format or the CDI format they were using, but
these there are two program, well actually more than that, two main programs that work with Flickr animations, and Flickr is I think it was developed by Autodesk.
that's the guys who did AutoCAD, right?
Yeah, and so I think it was pretty common on PCs, and there's one that came with the MM1 called Flickr, and then another one called AA Play, which I think is actually a port of PC I think there was an article in, I want to say maybe Byte magazine, where somebody from Autodesk provided source code for a C source for a generic Flickr player, and that was called AA Play, probably Autodesk Animator Play, I think, and that was ported to the MM1. It's a lot. It's slower. It takes a lot longer to load the animation file into memory. And then there are some other more special purpose ones that are meant to be used in a system where you feed like animation files to them in a pipe. And I kind of got those to work, but they're also kind of complicated. So there's one.
So what are you getting, about 4 or 5 frames a second, maybe, or?
Yeah, maybe.
And is this using the more optimized view, or is this the more generic one?
Yeah, this is the Flickr player, not AA Play. So I think this is the more optimized one. Let's see. And some of these are things that I converted into Flickr animations. They were like animated GIFs that are more modern things that I just found online and kind of back converted those to Flickr files. There are some, various ones that were around back in the 90s, but they were small and not very good. A lot of them, they had to be small because the bandwidth to transport these things was just not there.
Well, that's smoother.
Yeah, there's not as much in it. I think there's not. It uses. I think it's sort of differential kind of thing, from the last frame. And so if you're not
And the resolution probably matters too. Like if it's a 320 by 200 versus a 320 by 400, there's
Yeah.
obviously twice as much data.
The keyframe then with deltas.
Yeah.
For distance, and then it does another keyframe.
Right. Let's see. So, I mean, that gives you an idea of the kind of things that the MM1 could have been doing, and I think we could play. I did when I was playing around with the tracker, the mod player earlier. I found out that if I elevated the priority on its process a little bit, it would play pretty well with with very little cutting out when multitasking and doing other things. So you could. It's a little bit tricky to set it up here in the moment, but you could definitely be doing, especially if you're doing a wave file, which just plays with DMA. You could definitely have an animation like this going on while playing audio at the same time.
Cool. I can't think of anything else to ask to see right off the bat here, but yeah, there's some pretty impressive stuff in there. It's too bad didn't have the numbers, and of course the FCC approval delays both originally with Kenneth Lay / IMS, and then later on when Blackhawk and stuff took over, where he was trying to negotiate with the people who had the boards. I remember reading the monthly stories there in 6 to 8 Micros. They would give an update. Oh no, they have less boards than they thought, and now they won't release them unless I prepay this many orders. And
yeah,
it's just yeah,
and then finally when we kind of had trouble with the IO board, that just the version 3 IO board, that just made it real hard. This is a 16 color, but with your choice from 16 million colors, overscan, interlaced, photo. And just as another comparison, here is this is
self-portrait.
Yeah, this is the rainbow picture, also 16 colors, interlaced. And I think I should have the same one.
Brian Weezer, were you showing off MM1 stuff today too, or will you have something else to show off? Can't remember.
No, I do have a machine to show off, but I just thought when he was done here that maybe I just show the MM1 I have. I'm not going to be running it, but we can just show the hardware as kind of a piggyback off of that, and then we can move on to the next person. I was just going to take like 3 or 4 minutes to do some show and tell. So, yeah.
Okay.
And the last thing I'll end up with, here's the same picture, but this is just 320 by 200 and 256 colors. All right, I'm done.
Just one question.
Yeah.
Can the MM1 do a non-interlace screen? Like if you want to hook up a VGA monitor to it? Because 15 kilohertz monitors are a bit hard to come by nowadays.
Yeah, indeed. So you mean like a 31 kilohertz screen?
Yeah.
There is, I don't know. There is in the documentation for K Windows, in at least one version, in an early version of it, it mentions a mode, mode 0A, I think, that was supposed to be VGA. And then later on that disappeared. I don't know whether that was just purely hypothetical or whether it was possible at one time to do it, but then it was removed from K1. So I probably not, but I'm not. I can't say that with certainty. I found a few years back where my wife works, they were getting rid of some of these monitors. These are NEC AccuSync LCD 71Vs. I got a couple of these that they had, and they are VGA, SVGA, fairly modern monitors that do sync down to 15 kilohertz and do work with the MM1. I didn't want to show them today because you have to adjust them back and forth if you're going from overscan to not overscan but yeah, it does work pretty nicely on the MM1. And there are some.
So yeah, and with the MM1, go ahead.
There are a few select Dell monitors that do that as well. I've got a couple of those.
And as Joel's talking about, the CM8 monitor does work really well on it. You just have to make a cable to go from the 9-pin to the 10-pin that the to the CM8 monitor uses. And once you get it to the CM8, if you happen to have a RGB to HDMI adapter that you've maybe used with your CoCo 3, works beautifully with that.
I wish I had one of those.
So Brian, you said you want to do a little bit of show and tell of the insides, or?
Yeah, I was just going to show basically the difference between the upright case that Joel was sharing with the pizza box case that I have here.
Yeah, the pizza box I think is how the original one shipped, if I remember correctly. I don't think they had too many options for it, but.
Okay, yeah.
Thanks, Joel, by the way.
Yeah.
It's great to see one up and running, GUI and all.
Yeah, I've been playing a lot with it in recent years, especially after I put the Blue SCSI on there. That's a dream.
Okay. If Mark wants to, Mark, step away for a second.
Yeah, now we can't switch his highlights.
Well, real quick here, while we're waiting for Mark to come back, Joel, the machine that I have. Oh, there's Mark.
You're already pinned, Brian. Go for it.
Okay. Am I pinned? Okay. Are you guys seeing me? Because usually I would see myself here, and I see Mark pinned.
Yeah, I'm not
That's
seeing.
the primary.
Are you sharing anything yet, or just your icon thing?
Oh, here we go. I got my video turned on, but I'm not sharing it. I mean, I got my.
I can see you now.
Right, but I'm not coming up as the primary, so I'm not sure if I would be if I'm the one that's going out. Okay, I see the CoCo Nation there. Okay. There we go. Okay, there we go. Okay, let me switch cameras here real quick. Oops, and down just a little bit here. So there we go. So here's like the one you saw in the case, or that Joel had there. This one here, so the machine I have here is one that, Joel, I know you're going to know the name there. James Jones.
Yeah.
Yep. So James and I have been chatting now for quite a while here, and this was actually his machine, and it's now with me here, and I'm working with it and trying to get it going. The machine that he has here, it has the 3.5-inch floppy, but this here is a floptical drive. I'm not sure if some of you guys are familiar with what that is. It uses
That's the one that did
discs.
20 meg and 1.44.
Yep. So it uses discs like these here. It looks like a 3.5-inch floppy, but it's kind of like uses a little bit like a CD technology where it has a laser inside there, and it can do up to the 20 meg on it, or 21 megabytes on it. So this one here actually had a floptical drive in it, a 3.5-inch floppy, and then there is a SCSI drive that's underneath the floppy drive here. Not sure what's going to be the best way to do this one here. Maybe I'll just kind of try to hold the camera if I can. I was going to try to, let's see here. I'll try to hold it and not have too bad of a shaky cam here too much. So yeah, here's the different cards here that he was talking about here. The different, here's the I/O board. This is the main system board here. These are a couple little adapter boards that give you some of your serial outputs, and you can see here's the memory on this one here, and the back plane board here on this one. You can see here's the SCSI drive that's in here. There's a 3.5-inch floppy, and the hard drive and the floptical drive are both SCSI devices. But I am having a bit of an issue on this one, Joel. James and I have been working here trying to get it to go. I was able to pull an image using a blue SCSI off the drive, but I've not been able to get this thing to boot up. When I boot it up, it says something like trying floppy, trying hard drive, trying memory, and then it just keeps cycling. I'm thinking about swapping out the hard drive with the blue SCSI in there.
Yeah.
And maybe try to get a good image. So
one thing,
James,
what version of blue SCSI? You must have a later one if you can put it in initiator mode, right?
Yes. Yep. It's like was it 1.24 or whatever the version is or something. Okay. Yeah. Yep.
Because I found that the version 1 blue SCSI did not work on my MM1, but version 2s do.
Okay. Yeah. This is a version 2. This is a fairly recent. I just bought it like in the past 8 months, I think. So,
okay,
yep.
Good.
Yep. So, yeah, I might be leaning out to some questions though. But yeah, really, Joel did a wonderful job of showing the operation of the machine and the history of it. But I just kind of wanted to show the layout of this one here. I love the little logo that it has on there, and all the buttons there to power it on and everything. So it's really kind of it's a cool machine, and I look forward to working with it a little bit more.
Let me know if I can do anything to help get it up and running, because I really want to see more of them running still in the world.
Yep. I'll be reaching out to you there. In a box of stuff there that I shared this a couple weeks ago on the CoCo Nation, but I thought I would just show it here though. The source for this here, the pronounce. I'm not sure how it's pronounced. Is it Groff 1.01 source? I'm not sure exactly what it is.
I think it's text formatting program.
Okay. And then a gentleman that's on the Discord for the MM1, David, is it Grantham? Grantham?
Yeah.
Yep. He actually had wanted to know if somebody had a floptical drive, and so I told him I did, and he actually sent me a stack of discs, and so I was able to use the blue SCSI along with this floptical drive. And here's an example of one of the discs, and I've imaged these up for him. Oh, what's that blue dot coming from? Is that? Oh, it must be on my. Oh, it's from the camera. Sorry, guys. That blue dot's messing with me there. This disc actually says MM1 on it, CMD, and it has MGR on it. So I have a copy of MGR. I do have an image of this disc. so I'm kind of hoping that we can get MGR running on this MM1, which was kind of a graphics type of interface for it.
Now, is James just a stock M1 or is it one of the accelerator boards?
Say that again, I'm sorry?
The one that you got from James, is that just a stock 68070 based M1, or is it one like an A or B that has one of the accelerator boards?
Boy, I don't know. I haven't educated myself enough with all the hardware yet to know the difference between them.
It's definitely not a B, because that's the AT style motherboard. But if it is an A, it will have an additional PC board on it that's the accelerator that plugs into the CPU socket.
Yes, that is on there. Do I have a picture of that? Let's see here. Let me look real quick here, and then I can, because it's all sandwiched in between there. So let me look and see here real quick.
Yeah, James actually just said in the chat, because he's in there, the original one of the machine, he actually said it does have the accelerator.
Yes, yep.
So that'd be the 68340 then.
Yeah, it sounded familiar. Yeah, so on top of the oh, here it is. You can see it right here. So here's the main board right here. And then there's this accelerator board right on top of it right here. And it plugs into the type of socket that like what our the Gimme chip.
PLCC.
Yep, PLCC, thank you. Type of socket there. And it plugs in right there. But yeah, I've had a lot of fun with it. I haven't been able to spend as much time. I know James is very excited to see this thing come up and running again, and I am as well. And so we'll get it going. We've been in contact with Boise. James has been doing a lot of research and trying to create some images for me, some disk images that we can try to get this thing booting up. So hopefully we'll get it running here soon, and we can see this thing come back to life. So, but that's all. I just wanted to kind of show the hardware. So maybe once we get this thing up and running, we can come back on with another episode and see this one coming on. So, but that's all I wanted to share, Curtis, was just, I guess, the difference, because Joel did a wonderful job of showing the machine. So.
Okay. I've got a couple more MM1 related ads to show, just 3 of them. In the later part. So there's a review of the first accelerator board, the one that's actually in James's machine here. That was published in the World of 68 Micros in December of '93. So we can find that one. So this is a fairly extensive review. It does some like the dry stone tests and stuff like that too, and shipping information for Blackhawk and William Whitman Jr., who's also a distributor at the time. And these, of course, all the World 68 Micros, every single issue is actually on the Color Computer Archive. So if you guys want to look any of the stuff up, feel free. The next one after that was the first ad that Blackhawk put in for actually selling them. So now available to the public with 50 systems ready to go at the factory. We need cash to pay for it. So he's talking about the minimum order thing. And that did change a little bit, as Joel mentioned. The factory reported back and the quantities weren't quite what they were thinking. But they were selling it as a developer system and the professional system, the extended kit. Includes OSK 2.4 with both C and BASIC. And that's microware BASIC, which is basically BASIC 9 for 68K. So a couple of different prices there. And then lastly, the MM1B, the first ad for that, which is the 68306 base system, which is so Bill Whitman, I think, was involved with that and then kind of sold it on his own as well. This is from the May 1995 issue of World 68 Micros. So here it mentions it's got the AT 16-bit AT bus plane, 5 slots, 68306, which is running at 16.67 megahertz. Anywhere from 0.5 to 16 meg of RAM, IDE hard disk interface, so starting to change away from SCSI. High density floppy, 2 16-bit FIFO serial ports, so this is like 16 550s with 115 kilobaud. Onboard there's 2 buffers, bidirectional parallel port, battery back, real-time clock, yay. AT keyboard face, because the original one used the XT. The TC9 did use the AT keyboard as well, which I'll get into when we get to that part. Personal OSK version 3, which is industrial with RBF added for handling hard drives and floppy drives. And you can see display drivers here for some certain chipsets for the PC market, because of course this was using AT bus stuff so that you could actually plug in commodity PC cards that were a lot cheaper than custom designing your own. And they also had, you know, certain SCSI drivers supported as well. And some software thrown, including GoScript is mentioning the UCP package by Bob Bilson, not to be confused with Rick Adams' version of UCP, and a bunch of other utilities and stuff in programming languages. So, and pricing as low as $400, which was pretty cool. But by that time, I mean, even a 68306 was starting to show its age against some of the other machines out there, because I think the 68040 and the Pentium and you know, we're all out at this point already. So okay, so that covers that. I did want to mention one other thing here. I'll just kind of show the rainbow covers here for a few. I won't cover the MM1 because we've already kind of seen that already at this point, thanks to Joel. But here's the first one they did, which was the Delmar System 4. Kind of showing some stuff there. And then that on page 10, yes. So this is Rainbow's review of the one. You can see it's kind of a, not a pizza style case, more of a taller desktop style case here. And they do a pretty good review of it. They kind of show you a little bit, it's a little bit dark here, but the actual motherboard photo, the back with the ports. And the System 4, which I'll let Rick get into shortly here, is basically based on an AT bus or XT bus, I guess, using PC commodity cards as well. And the last one announced and the first one reviewed, because it was using commodity parts, it was quite easy for them to, you know, get a system out into people's hands here, because they didn't have to design IO boards and everything else. It was just like, here's a PC card for SCSI, here's a PC card for ID or whatever it was, and just plug it in as long as you wrote a driver. So the hardware side was kind of handled, and that was the approach they were trying to take, is to make it as, you know, cheap and easy as possible. And then after that was the TC9, which I'll go into later. And that's the exact same case I've actually got here, though I don't have the little nice fancy TC logo on mine. But this is the one that was actually based on the Gimme chip, the 6809, the Disto 1 meg upgrade was kind of built into the board with sockets and stuff. So there's no soldering to go up to 1 meg. It used 4 SIMs, and you could run it with 5. There was no 128K option. It was basically a 512 or a 1 meg, basically. And AT keyboard interface, which means you could program the lights a bit more reliably. It wasn't just a toggle. You actually knew what state that we're in. We actually used some of that, which I'll briefly show. I don't have mine fully up and running as smooth as it should be, but.
Didn't Frank Hogg say that he bought like Tandy's remaining stock of Gimme chips for the TC?
Yeah, it was between 500 to 750, I think he got.
Yeah.
But he didn't sell all those in TC9s. He actually ended up selling them to other people later on. I think Mark Marlette bought a bunch of them too.
Okay. I was wondering after you guys had him on the CoCo Nation, I was wondering what happened to all those chips. I was thinking, man, wouldn't it have been a shame if all those things got tossed?
No, I think Mark and some others bought them.
That's good.
And it's a dual board set.
Yeah.
So they have an IO board there. I will mention some things that were competitive with the MM1. It actually does have an 8-bit DAC and an 8-bit ADC, same as the MM1 did. So you have 8-bit sound output versus the CoCo's PIA based one, which is 6 bits.
Stereo though?
Pardon me?
Was it stereo?
No, just mono.
Yeah, the MM1's got stereo sound. It's got 2 ADC.
Yeah. And you were mentioning like it uses the 8-bit ADC for the joysticks, which the TC9 did as well. So you could actually have joystick resolution of 256 by 256. So that was kind of the same thing. But basically, it's a CoCo 3 with some enhancements. It's got an AT keyboard controller. It's got real serial ports based on the not the 6551, but
6552.
Yeah, the dual port 38.4 kilobaud.
Yeah.
Same as the Eliminator board that Prank sold as well. SIMs for the upgrade, which have actually made it cheaper for getting the RAMs and stuff. There is a version that has a boot ROM that's built into it, and it was able to handle the Eliminator, a floppy drive, or a Birkin Brick system. I think that's why it didn't work with the Super Controller 2 unless you ran it in halt mode. If that even worked, I'm not sure. It might have been.
It to work in halt mode. I couldn't even get it to work just as a floppy controller. I don't know why.
Well, I was going to ask, did you try it without the 4-in-1 board? Because I'm wondering if the addressing of that conflicted with some of the TC9's new addresses.
I don't remember. It's been a hot minute, but it wouldn't have mattered because if it wouldn't work with the 4-in-1 board, then it didn't make much of it. I get, I seem to remember talking with somebody about it, and there was some thought that it might have something to do with one of the logic chips on the 4-in-1 board, that like a particular logic family of one of the TTL chips, but
yeah, because the reason I was wondering is a lot of this our hardware was mapped in different spots than the CoCo would have used.
Yeah.
Like the dual serial ports, the parallel ports, and all that kind of stuff. So I'm wondering if it was maybe a memory conflict for the I/O space.
I kind of feel like I checked into that and that it wasn't a problem, but like I say, it's been a long time.
Okay.
John Linville has my TC9 now. I loaned it to him. I shipped it off for a while, and I think he was gonna try and get it running again. It wasn't running very reliable for me in recent years, and
yeah, I'm getting the same problem with mine.
I haven't heard back if he's had any.
I know Bill Nobles is now in the possession of Mark Marlette, and he actually did fix the board up because Bill's was acting up like 25, 30 years ago. Mine was actually running not too bad. I actually demoed it at CoCo Fest 2016 or 2017, and it was running good enough that I could actually boot up G Shell, and I can't even get, like right now, the floppy drive won't write. It will read, but it won't write. So I've got to replace that. Actually, what I'm going to do is when the CoCo SDC2 gets released here shortly, I'm probably going to take one of my old CoCo SDCs and actually set it up to see if I can actually get a TC9 boot running completely off that. Maybe that'll solve some of these problems. Also, there's no RF out on this. It's composite or RGB only, and it uses the same CM8, Magnavox 8515, etc. that the M1 used. But basically, it's basically a mix of a CoCo 3 with a Dista 1 meg upgrade and an eliminator. With serial ports and parallel ports and stuff like that. So it had a lot of stuff that you could have done with the K-Bus, and like I said, from what Bob Huppo described to me and Bill, the hardware was ready for it. If you had the K-Bus backplane, you could add in the extra boards and actually talk to FPU boards and all kinds of stuff on there, but the software was never done to do it, and we didn't have the hardware to test that, so we didn't do anything with it. Funnily enough, the claims of it being 25% faster than the CoCo, which was going to be done with a clock doubling circuit that Bob Huppo designed, actually ended up being true, because if you threw a 609 in it, and Bill and I both developed Nitrous 9 on our CoCo 3 at work and our two TC9s at home, we actually did get it running faster than 25% over stock. So, like Frank, if he had known about the 609 at the time, probably could have made that claim, and it had been true. And then the last one I want to show here before I pass it off, and I'll save the TC9 for last, is the editorial that Lonnie did that caused a bit of flack that he published in May 1992. So this is after the year, well, basically about 6 months after the last of the 3 base systems that were meant to be CoCo 4s were released. And basically he says in that one, and I'll just screen share here, I won't read the whole thing, obviously, but this caused a bit of upset in the OS9 world for sure. And it does have a point here. I mean, at the time we didn't think it, but the whole thing with the CoCo market making it so interesting fun is that there are bunches and bunches of software, and that's the big problem. And out of the 3, I mean, the TC9, you got to use a lot of the OS9 level 2 software and some of the basic software. If you got the Chris Burke's TC9 basic patches, which basically patch basic to run with the AT keyboard and run with the joysticks, the 2D6, the ADC chips and the DAC chips, etc. But basically what he says here is that because none of these will ever get as much software because it's kind of late in the game and you're competing with Atari and STs and Macs and PCs and everything else. His quote here is that there is no color computer 4 and there never will be. The efforts of several third-party companies to entice those of you who want more power and abilities from your CoCo-based or more correctly Motorola processor-based platform by selling you a new computer will not serve you well in the future. The reason for this is simple: software. Other than the PC platform, he didn't like Macs. There's probably no single type of computer in the history of the industry that has enjoyed as wide a base of third-party support as a color computer. Compare this to what is available for your basic CoCo 4 machine, and the result is almost laughable. And then he just goes on and kind of like reiterates the point in different ways. So he suggested you should switch over to MS-DOS and Windows rather than any of the new CoCo 4s. And like I said, that did definitely upset a lot of the people in the CoCo community at the time, including myself, I'll fully admit.
He was right, though.
Yeah, he was. The TC9, if Frank could have gotten it out in bulk and finished, getting the K-Bus driver stuff, that might have had a little bit of a shot because at least you had the CoCo 3 software base as a start. But yeah, it was too much too late, or too little too late, I guess. And on the other ones, you were basically limited to OSK, which is more of an industrial type operating system with some GUIs that were done, like MGR and G Windows and stuff.
Yeah, I think if there had been more of a unified GUI for the 68K machines, I don't think it wouldn't have made it, a major dent in history. But if there'd been K Windows on OS 9 for Atari, there would have been lots and lots more machines that conceivably could have run the same software as was running on the MM1. But yeah, I mean, ultimately,
yeah.
During the development of the Amiga, OS 9 was an operating system that was considered as a potential OS, but they went with the Amiga.
Mainly because there was no GUI done. Like there was no graphics. Like they would have done that from scratch because OS 9 was meant to be run more on terminals, etc. I mean, G Windows was starting to come around, but it wasn't ready for prime time at that point. I did want to show a person uploaded to the TC9 group on Facebook like 5 years ago. Nice clean shots of the boards here, and I'm not ripping mine apart, so I'll show you these instead. So there you can see this is the main motherboard. You can see the gimme chip right over here. You can see the 609. I've resocketed and put a 639 in mine. Okay, I didn't do it, but somebody else did. The TC9 boot ROM, which actually went through a couple of revisions there. The original one was basically just to boot off the floppy. Later, they had it so you boot off a Burke and Burke, or you could boot off the Eliminator. You could boot off a floppy drive. You could also have it boot a floppy to load in disk basic patches and stuff. Here's the 4 SIM slots. So these are 256K SIMs. So you get up to 1 meg. This here is the disk to 1 meg upgrade board. That's the DAT translator that was required. On the CoCo 3, you have to like resolder it directly to your CPU. The TC9 was set up just to have a double header connector. You just plugged it in, so no soldering required. And this is the I/O one, which contains the serial chip, the DAC, the ADC, the 6821 PIAs, etc. And that basically just plugged on top of each other. So it's basically a triple layer if you want to 1 meg. If you're just doing 512K, you didn't need this board here at all.
If I recall correctly, you had to have the CoCo bus header pins were wired such that you had to flip. You had to slice up your ribbon cable and reverse every other connector.
You did if you were using the standard connector, the 40 pin or 34 pin, 40 pin connector. If you had special ones, which I got from Frank, like he sold them with it, they were kind of flipped already inversed, and then we just plugged in a Y cable and away you went.
Yeah, see, I bought just a bare board set.
Okay, yeah. No, we got the complete with case and power supply and the whole shebang. So. And then I'll show this one here, just kind of a segue into the stuff the other guys will be showing here. So this is a kind of a summary of all the CoCo 4s. And the CoCo itself, I guess, included as well, from World 68 Micros, November 1994. And it kind of does a nice summary. It even gets to some of the bigger end ones, which I'll very briefly touch on near the end. Okay, this is the right window. Yeah. So more widely used versions of OS 9 useful to hobbyists. So 609 on the CoCo, obviously there. Also mentioned the TC9 a little bit later on. OS 9 68000 in general, which you could run on a variety of machines, and then start going to machines. So the AT306, which is the second accelerator, the M1B, basically. and what version of OS9 that came with, and the PST68K, CDS680XO. That covers System 4 and the System 5s, basically. The MM1, of course. Hazelwood, which of course did the Kix 20, the Kix 30, and some of the other ones that Frank Hogg sold. These even had like extra high density floppy controllers up to the 2.8 meg discs that didn't really take off afterwards. Had to have really accelerated graphics from what I've heard. Ran G Windows. Atari ST and the Mega ST, which Kimiana Limited in England was the ones that did that port. And that's one that Kevin Darling was working on K-Windows. I remember you mentioned that in CompuServe he was working on it, but like I said, like you said, Joel, I don't know if that ever got released or finished. Amiga 500 1000, the Amiga version is by Tesseract. And then terminals, etc. The Macintosh, that was done by Ultrascience, a division of Gibbs Laboratories. And as you mentioned, that actually runs within macOS. So you can do preemptive multitasking in a single task, while macOS at the time was cooperative multitasking. I always found that hilarious. OS 9000, which could run on PCs, PowerPC, DEC Alphas, Intel chips, all kinds of things. And we did have this at work with G Windows. So I actually got to experience that a little bit. But yeah, it's a nice little summary of basically all the stuff that was out at the time. And after that, so Brian, what did you have to show? And Rick, what did you have to show?
I have an AT306 to just kind of do.
So that's
again,
the MM1B kind of, yeah.
Yeah, just kind of the hardware show and tell type of thing. I don't have it. We don't have a booting yet either. That's another project that we're working on. So
yeah, and Rick, I guess you didn't quite get yours working either, if I understood. Is Rick still here?
I think he's gone.
Yeah, Rick seems to be missing.
Oh.
Yeah, Rick is gone.
Hey, well, Brian, go ahead and show the AT306, which is basically the MM1B, the second accelerator.
Okay. Well, run real quick. I was just going to show one more thing here on the with the. Oh, am I spotlighted there, Mark? Does he have me?
He wandered off again. This show is going so smooth.
There we go. So this let me switch the camera here. You guys don't see what I'm talking about. Let's see here. I'll just zoom in. I was just going to zoom in. This is kind of the port arrangement on this one here. I just wanted to kind of share that real quick. I did kind of label it up a little bit to make it a little bit easier to see though. But as Joel was talking about there, you got the keyboard. There's the video. Here's the stereo sound, the joystick port. It has the two serial ports here for a T0 and a T1. And then this has the this extra board here, which actually is labeled MIDI. So this was your MIDI output on this one. And then this board here, it's a serial port, but it's actually labeled as a paddle, serial paddle port. And Joel, do you know what the reference for paddle is? I haven't dug into that enough to understand what they mean by paddle, serial paddle.
I don't
port.
know why they call them paddle boards, but I think just because they were little boards that they didn't put the level translator boards to from 5-volt logic to 12-volt for the RS-232. They did not put those chips on the I/O board. One of the things that they did on the version 3 board is that they did put the line level translators on the version 3 I/O boards, but the older ones didn't have those, and so or at least not for all of the serial ports. And so those paddle boards were just added the line level translators, and they give. I don't know why they call them paddle boards. I don't know what that means. But the one that's showing on the right for you is, see, it gave you the option then of using some of the serial ports as MIDI ports and some as serial ports, just depending on what you wanted. So you could plug either the MIDI board or the serial board to plug in there for depending on what you wanted to use.
Okay. Thank you for that explanation there. Okay, let's see here. Let me get this guy out of the way.
I think MIDI runs at a slightly different speed.
Yeah, 31.25 kilohertz or something like that, or kilobaud, I should say.
So the MIDI is just another serial port that actually runs at the MIDI port speed.
Yeah. It's an odd speed serial port.
Yeah.
Okay, that's your. It's kind of a taller case, though. So this is the AT306. Again, this is a machine that I got from James Jones. He had this in his items that he's been rediscovering again. It did not come with this drive, but this is the type of drive that he had in it. It's one of those 5 1/4 and 3 1/2 inch bays for the drive. It has the blank fillers on it, but it's probably a little bit easier. I'll just flip around to the back, and then we'll take the cover off and take a look at on the inside here again. Oops, let me pan down here. There we go. So here's a video board, and it's VGA on this one here. This is a serial board, so it has a 25-pin serial, and then there's an actual serial port and parallel port that extend to the outside. I'll go ahead and get the camera looking on the inside of this thing. If we can't quite see it, I have some pictures that I can share.
Did they really do the parallel port as a male DB25 and
Yeah, the
parallel as the DB20?
Yeah, let's see here.
I would think the top two would be serial and the bottom would be parallel, but anyway.
Yeah, the one is, well, let's see here. Maybe that
on IBM,
the top one. Yeah, so the 25-pin. Yeah, this one here's
serial.
actually. Yeah, this is the serial. This is actually labeled as T0, so I'm corrected there. So thank you for asking that, Mark. Yep. So, yep. So this actually is going to one of the serial ports, and this is going to one of what they were calling a terminal port there. Let's see here. Is that we're getting enough light in here on this guy here?
Yeah, I can see the back plane. Yeah. You got some empty slots and 2 slots filled.
Yeah, looks excellent.
Yep. Okay. So this is the processor on it there. Let me see if I can't zoom in on there for you guys. Play with this camera. Oops, everything's backwards on the buttons there. what I think is left is actually right there. Is that gonna zoom in for you guys?
You're about centered. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see if I can.
It's not going to focus though.
Come on.
Oh, there you go.
There it goes. There it is. So it's the Motorola 68306 is what's in this.
16 megahertz. It looks like.
Yep, 16 megahertz. That is correct. Let's pan back here just a little bit. So it has four SIM slots in it. I think it's capable. I think this one can also go up to. I can't remember if it's 4 meg or if it
16
can go up to
meg from what the ad said. Yeah, you can use 4 meg SIMs.
And it has 2 ROMs right here. They're just labeled because I wanted to keep track of them. I've already pulled a copy of the ROM on those. You can't quite see it up here, but this uses an AT power supply. It uses just a regular PC case. So it has and it goes down to your AT power connectors down here. So here's your motherboard power connectors, and you can see it has all of the regular type of connectors that you'd have for floppy drives and everything.
And hard drives of the era.
Yep. And one of the advantages of this one here that was talked about earlier is this has the ISA slots in it. So this is using standard cards. So this is a VGA card, and this is an Adaptec SCSI card that's in it. This one here happens to be a, oh shoot, I had this all in my head here, Hercules. So this is a Hercules VGA video card on it that's in this one, and I believe that's what was shipped with it. In the Micro 86, one of the issues there, they go into quite a bit of detail talking about the trouble they had getting these to work. They talk about having to take this board out, put it into a PC, set up the VGA, and then somehow it stored something on the board and you can put it back in there. So we're still working on getting that to go there. Let's see, let me pan out a little bit here. It has the floppy drive up here, and this one also uses a regular IDE because on the motherboard is an IDE interface, and so it uses an IDE hard drive on it. And this is just a Magnavox hard drive that's in this one here. And that's all down here on the bottom of the case right here. Right here is this is the floppy interface that's right here. And you can't quite see it. Here's the you can see the ribbon cable here, but just underneath the bottom of this board here is the ID interface, and this was all built in on the board. They got terminal ports that's on the board, parallel ports, serial ports, and the ever popular real-time clock. It actually has the Dallas chip on there that I need to replace on that one there. I'm trying to think what else I could really share with this one here. It does boot up to OS 9, and we've had that going there. The trouble we've been having is with MGR. When we kick it off, we get this really scrambled looking garbly goop of colors. If I hit keys on the keyboard, you can see a little shifting of the colors, so we know something's happening. We're not sure if it's the MGR program itself or if it's the video board, because this does support a number of different video modes, and again, James and I have been playing with that there. We just haven't been successful yet with getting it going there. I'm just going to look here.
James says it's a Hercules Dynamite ISA.
Yes. Yep. Let me see here. I'm trying to see if there's anything in the pictures that I have here that I haven't shown here so far. Let's see here. Maybe I can share my screen. I can show a few pictures here. What it looks like on the boot screen there. Let's see here. Let me share. And what do I want to share here? Okay, is that coming through for you guys there?
Yeah.
Okay, so you can see it booting up here. It says the AT30 support ROMs there, and it says attempting to boot, and it says floppy not ready. This is just some shots I was sending to James here. It says that it's a boot error failure, but it actually does. That's the drive itself. When it boots up, it comes up and says the OS 9 68K version 3.0. time sharing system, AT306 computer, and then it has the time, and it's asking for, it comes right up to the username. I can do a directory on the drive here, and you can see some of the folders that are on the drive there, including MGR. Let's see here, I'm not sure. Oh, this just happened to be a manual. I can't remember the guy's name. He had posted something on one of the channels and said that, actually, no, let me take that back. This goes back about 4 years. And I just happened to reach out to him and said, do you still happen to have this? And he goes, well, let me look. And he looked and he did have it. There is a digital copy of it, but being the collector in me, I like the original stuff. And so he had one of the original OS 9 manuals that came with the AT306. It doesn't get into hardware here. It's really just OS 9 commands. But it was just a label that they put on there that, and this is what was shipped with the AT306 at the time. Oh, this was some other stuff that I got at a later date. Did I get this from James? I'm trying to remember if I got these from James or if this came through a different source. I had gotten some stuff from Alan Huffman as well, and I can't remember where these came from, but this is just some little pocket references. Oh, this is, yeah, so when you first boot up, before you get there, this is the screen you see for the video card there. It says it's the Hercules ISA bus, Dynamite, and it's a 2 meg video card there.
Did this have to have special ROMs for the 68,000? Or I think it would. I mean, you couldn't run as Intel opcodes on the ROM. Yeah,
well, I think the ROMs were, I think, are specific for this one here, for the board itself and the ISA board.
The ROMs on the video card or on the motherboard?
Oh, okay.
Motherboard would certainly have to have, OS 9 boot ROM with 68K code. But on the video card, I think you could just ignore the ROM that's on there. You just the code
use your own.
Would would just be OS 9 driver that would.
Right. So it's accessing at the driver level, or driver level, IO level. We got 10 minutes here.
So
not to rush you.
No. That's all I really have there. I just wanted to kind of show the hardware there, so I can stop sharing. Where's my stop
Okay,
sharing?
it doesn't
button
look like
there?
Rick's come back.
I apologize to Rick for yakking for so long. I drove him off.
Where's my stop sharing button at here, guys?
Usually it's at the top, the center of your screen.
Huh.
I have to jump over the other computer here to take you down, take it back to the group.
Okay. Huh. Why is it not giving me the stop sharing button there?
Just for fun, while we're waiting here, I've got Mike Knudson's Ultimuse up on the screen now. I have no idea how to use it, but that's what it looked like.
This is weird. I don't see the. I know what you're talking about. I don't see the stop sharing button. Come on, share. Yeah, I don't know what's going on there. Well, I'm just gonna leave the chat and I'll come back in. Thanks.
Yeah, well, I really don't know how to use Ultimuse, but that's what it looks like on the MM1.
Yeah, it's pretty similar to the CoCo one, actually. Ultimuse 3. That's a MIDI music editor for any of those who don't know what that is. Hey, before I show my TC9, which may or may not work, I'm just going to quickly show a couple of ads for some of the other potential CoCo 4s that came out later. So Frank Hogg and Hazelwood worked together on the Kix 30 and the Kix 20. Those are named after the 68030 and the 68020 chips that they used. The Kix 30 actually came out first, but it was a little bit higher price. So they later came out with 20 to be cheap. So I will first show. So here's the Kix 30, for example. Kind of a standard PC style board. It does have the extra high density floppy drives up to 2.8 meg. It's got 2 serial ports, parallel port, EEPROM up to 8 to 64K, 8 standard slots, 4 expanded slots. This 32-bit slots, dual channel DMA, up to 128 meg of RAM, a 68030 running at 1625 to 33 megahertz with an optional FPU if you wanted a floating point unit. The bus and actually the cards all run at the native speed of the CPU. So like some of the other machines are at the time where they clock it down, like say an AT bus, which I think was what, 8 or 10 or 12 megahertz, no matter how fast the CPU is going. This will actually run at 33 megahertz if you had a 33 megahertz 68030 in it. Full function SCSI, battery back RAM, system timer, etc. 4-layer board, mounts in a standard cabinet, full documentation, 16 and 32-bit buses, DMA, blah, 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 a bunch of stuff. But here, if you want to see what G Windows look like in its full glory, I mean, this is black and white, obviously, but that's literally what it looked like when I was running it. This is your little trash can, which is a little sandbox, which would be empty if you don't have everything in your trash, and it fills with sand if you put things in the trash. And you can also minimize icons and put a little ZZZ thing to say it's sleeping. If it's paused and waiting for you, and you click on it, zoom it back up where it left off. Came with a bunch of little apps here. You also could control the border windows to look differently. Like here, you can see ones with like the 3 bars across, other ones don't. And you kind of had choices that you could do that with. Bunch of fonts built in. It was quite a nice system.
It's a better trash can than mine.
They had more colors to choose from too. Built-in VT100 terminal emulation on every single screen. So if you ran anything that used VT100, you could just run it natively. So that was a pretty decent one. And then they announced the Kix 20, which is the affordable version of kind of the same thing. Still 32-bit with a 68020 base chip instead. So a little bit cheaper. Actually, a fair bit cheaper. So $699.95. And that's a 25 megahertz 68020, only up to 16 meg RAM in this case, not up to the full 128 like the Kix 30 had. Same onboard SCSI controllers the Kix 30 had. Doesn't have the extra high density, which actually wasn't a loss because not too many machines actually ended up using that. Only one 32-bit expansion bus connector instead of the 4 and 4 that the Kix 30 had. So definitely it's a scaled down version with the 68020, which had less of a cache, etc. But $699, including OSK and a C compiler and microware basic and a bunch of utilities, that's actually not too bad. So that's what they're shooting for. There was the price difference. And then because Rick's not here, I will just quickly show the ad about the System 4 and the System 5 and the differences between those. So as we explained before, the System 4 and 5 both use basically standard AT cards. And that was its big thing, that it would give you a 68020 or 68000 base system running OSK that would just use standard off-the-shelf PC cards, which were dirt cheap because they were manufactured in bulk for the PC market. It just needed drivers, and that's where the weakness was, because you had to write drivers for every single thing. And as Linux people know, in the early days, that missed a lot of cards that were available, so you were kind of limited on your choice. But basically, System 4 was a 68000 base system running at 16 megahertz, and the System 5 was 68020 running up to 25 megahertz, 128 meg of RAM, and that ran quite well. I remember they did demonstrate some VGA graphics running on it when they put in the IBM XT on a card as one of the card options you could put in there. You actually could run, because it had its own CPU and everything else, you could run things like Sierra's King's Quest, and they actually demonstrated that at CoCo Fest. And because it's VGA, it actually got into pretty high-res graphics using actual VGA monitors at 31.5 kilohertz, not 15.75 that we had on the CoCo, the M1, the TC70. So it definitely lets you get some higher graphics modes. You can see up to 1024 by 768 by 256 here in this case. The color palette, I think, was only 262,144 colors, not the full 16 million that the M1 with the palette controller had. So that's basically kind of catching up on that. Now I'm going to attempt to turn my computer over here to show you my TC9, which we'll see if it's going to boot properly or not, because that's a hit or miss prospect at this point. But shut this light. Okay, so that's my TC9 system. This is not the original keyboard I had. The one I bought from Frank was actually a one that had a trackball and 3-button mouse kind of built into it here using Logitech. And unfortunately, I got broken one of my moves, so I ended up replacing this just a standard PC AT keyboard. This is the mini tower case that they use. I actually have some of the front panels off. The hard drive is dead, so I don't have one in here right now. I have a 5 1/4 that is kind of working and a 3 1/2 that's kind of working. And this is a neck multi-sync too. That's actually just a really nice one. This works on the CoCo too. So I will attempt to turn it on and see if that works. So I don't know how well that's going to show up here. Probably not very well.
Blue smoke.
Yeah, I'll try to move it a little bit closer, but just a sec here. I was trying to log in my phone and it wouldn't let me log in, so I'll have to figure that out later. So you can see here, it says that it's the TC9 boot ROM version 2, copyright 99.2 by FHL, Frank Hogg Labs. And then immediately the floppy drive lights on because it tries to boot off that first. It's not detecting hard drive controller, so it's not even trying anything else. So the first one attempt here, Chris Burke did a conversion of Super Extended Basic and Disk Basic to the TC9 to handle the new hardware. So the sound command and play commands would go through the 8-bit DACs. The joysticks would be read with the 8-bit analog to digitals. The keyboard, of course, is going to use the AT keyboard stuff here. This is intermittent. Sometimes it boots, sometimes it doesn't. So we'll just see what happens. It does give you a little boot screen loader where it kind of tells you what it's doing. But so here it says loading internal ROM. It's got some letters and numbers here to kind of do extended basic, disk basic, super basic. Let's see if I get lucky today. Almost. So basically what Chris had done here is that because they had the same problem that Microware had on making CoCo 3 Basic. And that's that, you can't just copy the ROMs into a ROM and just put it in there type thing. So it has to do with these, he released it as a patch disk that would take the ROMs right out of your machine, dump them, then patch them in order to run on the TC9. And yeah, it's not going to give me this. No loving today. I don't think I'm going to try one more time shutting it off. Occasionally I can actually get it to come right up to the prompt, but.
And so that is running like not even inside OS 9, right? That's just booting.
No, this is just off the boot ROM itself.
Yeah, cool. I'd never seen that.
Not saying file not found, so yeah, it just hates me today. Now, part of this problem here might be Chris's stuff was made for a stock TC9, 1.7 megahertz. Bill and I modified ours with upgraded clock crystals to run at a full 2 megahertz because all of the monitors we had would handle that just fine, and get an extra 12% speed increase for free. I'll just do this one last time. So I might be overclocking it a bit for his timing routines. Oh, there. It actually got a cursor. Now, it's not displaying right or anything, but at least... Because basically it would say like TC9 Super Extended Basic or something like that. And I did get it running a little bit yesterday where it actually was allowing me to type a little bit and then it would freeze. And then I'll just get out the OS 9, or Nitrous 9, actually. And this one I hope will at least boot to the point where I can at least show you a screen.
That's a pretty janky floppy.
Yeah, it is.
Who needs a faceplate anyway?
No,
You did need a working floppy, though.
It's doing one of its intermittent where it's just going to be a pain in the butt today. Yeah. It's getting errors trying to read from the disk. I mean, this says Nitrous 9 1.20. I don't know if you can read it. Probably pretty blown out on the screen here.
Yeah.
I do have one other one I could try. Like I said, it's pretty intermittent right now. It's whether it's going to boot or not. It's literally a crapshoot. Oh, this one's actually going to try to load those in boot file anyway.
Hey.
Whoa.
Yep.
Success.
So there we are. We actually have typing on here. A couple things that are a little bit different between the CoCo. First of all, caps lock actually lights up the caps lock light. I don't know if you guys can see that there, or if it came. But if you want the keyboard mouse, if you do a shift caps lock, the numlock light comes on, and that would tell you on each individual window whether you had your keyboard mouse enabled or not, which is something I always hated on the CoCo because you can't tell. And sometimes you're trying to like edit code or something with the arrow keys. And why is my arrow keys not working? Oh, this stupid keyboard mouse is on. So that was a nice thing we added in there too. We use Alt F11 and Alt F12 to go between windows, so you can go forward or back. I think the original driver Bruce did actually had each function key was to a specific window, but we can have up to 31 windows, and I've only got 12 function keys, so that was kind of retarded. So we changed that as well. We also changed the boot here to not use the standard OSN level 2. That's just the CC Ringo that comes with OSN level 2 from Tandy. And if I can get the other stupid boot disk to work, you'd actually see we were starting to do, if you've run EOU, you've seen we have the little thing at the start where it kind of gives you a report of your system. And it's not going to today. Oh, well. But anyway, yeah, you set it up and running, and the keyboard drivers work. It uses a serial mouse by default, or you could use the joysticks or a CoCo mouse with the expanded resolution of 8-bit. 256 by 256. Your sound has up to 255 volumes instead of just a 63. And the quality, of course, is a little bit better with 8-bit resolution. You could also record, because they're actual hardware chips, you don't have to do little quirky tricks on the... like we have to do with PIA, we have to worry about trying to read the joysticks, multiplex with trying to do sound, etc. type things. So that is all solved because it's all hardware. If you want to read a byte from the analog to digital port for reading sound samples, you just literally do a load of an 8-bit byte and you're done. You don't have to do any weird shifting around and stuff. So it's a lot better for that kind of thing too. And because of this, and because like the mouse was interrupt driven, the keyboard's interrupt driven, it actually ends up being a little bit faster than stock OS 9 and a CoCo 3, which was kind of nice. And then of course with Nitrous 9 and the 639 added and stuff, there got a lot better. So like Frank's original claim of being 25% faster, I think we're closer to 40 or 50% by the time we finished. So it was actually a pretty kick-ass machine. Now, I'm not running the latest versions here because that was all on my hard drive, which died. So, unfortunately, I can't show you that. But Typing one hand is going to be a bit slow. I apologize. No, I don't have the command loaded. Anyway, you can see I can switch between windows. I've only got 2 here, so going backwards and forwards is not going to appear any different, but basically it was just a nice way to get across there. But basically it's a CoCo 3 with enhanced hardware. The Eliminator, a lot of its hardware is in there, and then some extra stuff that was TC9 unique, like the 8-bit DAC and 8-bit ADC. And this was one of the main systems that Nitrous 9 was developed on up until 1.22. Bill and I both had TC9s at home. We also had a one-made CoCo 3 at work, and we just went back and forth between all those machines for testing and everything else, and the TC9 drivers were kept up to date along with the CoCo 3 stuff. And now the current EOU and the current versions of Nitrous 9, nobody developed the TC9 stuff afterwards, so it's so far behind it's incompatible. I can't even load in the new drivers and stuff, and the new kernel, it actually will crash. So I don't know if I'm ever take the time to actually get it going unless I get it fully working again and reliably. But yeah, it was a great machine to run on. It was nice having the professional keyboard and stuff and real serial ports without the bugs of the 6551. I probably could unplug it and kind of show you the ports in the back here, just the ones that came standard with it, just a sec here. And that'll be the last part of my presentation.
While you're doing that real quick, Frank Hogg's name came up quite a bit with all these systems and everything, and I think a lot of people have heard this story, but when Frank was getting ready to move down south, he supposedly reached out to people asking if anybody was interested in some of the documentation and things that he had, and he says that no one said anything, and so he thought there was no interest and it all went into a dumpster. It kind of makes me wonder now, after listening to this presentation, how much of the stuff that
he definitely did not reach out to me and Bill, or we would have taken it.
Yeah. So I don't know that.
About it, I would have jumped.
Yeah.
At the chance.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't know. Am I still zoomed here so people can see this?
Yep.
Okay, so this is the back standard PC style case. You can see I don't have too much used here. Obviously the power cords, etc. T1 and T2. So T1 was normally your serial mouse, and T2 is an actual hardware serial port. Both are capable up to 38.4 kilobaud. A real bidirectional parallel interface port. These are exact same chips as we're using the Eliminator. You got the joystick port, which actually is a double header connection that splits off into two. So you have one port that you plug both joysticks in. Now, we work with standard CoCo joysticks. I had to craft a couple of the craft style ones wired in. I don't think I have them around here at the moment. But basically, it just took one port and you plug both joysticks in. The CM8 here, same as the standard. And then you got your composite ports here for the audio and video. And if you wanted to do anything with the audio input stuff, it would go through the joystick port and you read the ADCs directly there. Normally, it's the drivers would set it up for being an actual, joystick type port, but you could record audio, 8-bit audio live and things like that too. And you could actually, because it was a real hardware chip, you could actually read it at, pretty decent frequency rates too, like a lot higher than a CoCo 3 can natively do. But other than that, it's pretty standard. Now, the bottom of one of the TC9 boards has this wider, almost XT AT style connector. That's the K-bus connector, which the TC70 also shared, and a whole bunch of the other cards. Like he had, I don't know, a couple dozen there that Hazelwood made, and that was meant to be the whole interrupt system that I was talking about at the beginning of the show, for being able to have different machines talk to each other on the same bus and request stuff from each other, or even from other memory cards or DMA cards or whatever else you wanted. So that was the potential future. Like I said, Bob Pupwood had mentioned that they tested it at the hardware level and everything was working, but drivers never got done for that. And Bill and I at the time couldn't afford to get a K-bus plus a CPU card and its own RAM and all that stuff, so we never got that. And Frank didn't give us a free one to try developing on. But we had a hell of a lot of fun in these machines, I have to say. We used them like crazy. And hopefully I can get it running more stable. I'm going to try it with the SDC2 comes out. I'm going to swap one of my old SDCs in here because that will give me hard drive and floppy capabilities. And I really miss the hard drive in this thing. Plus, these floppies aren't all that reliable anymore. So if I can make clean disk images of them first, and at least get Nitrous 9 1.20 or 2.2 running on the TC9 again, that'd be kind of fun. But that's it for my presentation. And I hope everybody enjoyed the history of how the CoCo 4 stuff all came to be.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, take us back to full screen and for everybody on screen and kill the stream, set up for the next one. Thank you, Strick, for hanging out. Okay, well, this is a wrap for this one. We have one more with Henry Strickland on his TFR9, and I think it's software-defined peripherals it's doing. So let me kill this one, and we'll set